DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, there's more. You get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is that go-getter energy that moves me, you, and everyone else to make things happen instead of merely passively sitting by waiting or hoping for things to happen in life. We call this personal initiative. We put all this together. What you get is the mindset, the method, the podcast, the book, known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show, as always. And today's topic is why you need to make moves without a plan. Why you need to do some things that are unplanned. You're going to have to take some actions that are not part of your grand strategy right now, that were not part of the original plan that you laid out or the plan that you've been following up to this very moment. I'm going to tell you exactly why here today. So I talk to athletes, entrepreneurs, business professionals, people who work at companies. And if the conversation goes long enough, I always like to ask people about their futures. It tells me a lot about a person when I can ask them about their future based on how they answer, whether they have thought about it at all, whether how detailed their plans are, what they plan on doing next, what they're up to right now. I ask people, what's the next move? What's the next thing that you're working on? What's the most important thing that you have going on right now? Where do you plan to be 5 years from now in your business, in your life as a person? And when a person has an answer, almost always, if somebody has an answer, almost always they have this perfect plan in place. This perfect plan that just sounds great. If it's an athlete, I'm gonna go play for this team, then I'm gonna make this club, then I'm gonna go here. If it's a business person, I'm gonna get more clients and customers, and they'll save up some money, add some staff, expand my business. A person working at a company, I'm gonna work here for a few years, I'm gonna learn the industry, learn the ins and outs, then I'm gonna strike out on my own, do my own thing. The saying goes, is a Yiddish saying that man plans and God laughs. Because we all know that life is unpredictable, even though we all have these great, well, not all of us, but some of us have these great plans that sound so perfect, all these things that we're going to do. But God laughs when we make our plans, as the saying goes. And often for some of us, always, life spoils our well-laid plans. As they say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Even if and when we do end up where we expected to go, we do get what we actually wanted to have. The route to getting there usually entails, not usually, always entails some twists and turns that we did not see coming. I think everyone here who's listening, no matter how old you are, you probably have had some twists and turns in your life to get to where you are right now that you didn't see coming. You were not expecting them. Maybe you saw them, but you weren't thinking it was going to happen to you, but it did happen to you. You didn't think you had to deal with it, but you did have to deal with it. And now here you are. So it happens to everybody. We have these unexpected twists in our lives that we didn't see coming, but we had to deal with it because they come. And today I'm going to share with you why you will and you do, as in like right now, today, need to start thinking about, at least thinking about, even better, doing, taking some moves that don't fit into your specific plan. The plan that you have, take some moves that don't go along with that plan. And I'm going to explain exactly why you're going to need to do that. Point number one, today's topic again is why you need to make moves without a plan in place. Point number one, you've heard all these stories of success, right? Success stories from people who have quote unquote made it in life, whatever you consider making it to be, people that you like to listen to who made it. Almost always, every single one of these stories, there is some inflection point where our hero in the story, they had a situation where there was a problem, a situation, some opportunity, or some fork in the road in which the hero, the success story, they didn't know exactly what to do at that point in the story. And every option that they could have taken, every option that they saw, carried a risk. So there was no yellow brick road option that, okay, if I do this, everything will be safe and perfect. Every option that they could have taken, there was some risk that came with it, some risk that could have ended their chances of becoming a success. Everyone comes to these points. And it was not part of the original plan, but it needed to be dealt with because, this is the situation at hand. They ended up making a move, and not always smoothly in making that move. They ended up never looking back. They made a move right there, made a decision. They never looked back, and they became the successor, the person who gets to tell their story. And as I said in my book, Work on Your Game, in life, you're either going to become a story or a statistic because things happen. These forks in the road, we all face these at different points in our lives. And the statistics are the people who face these forks in the road and we can't figure them out, so we end up doing nothing. The stories are the people who face these forks in the road. We take the road less traveled, so to speak. We go and take that option that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to go. We didn't plan for it, but then we figure it out. We never look back, and then we become that success story person who can tell their story, who can write a book, who can do a podcast, who gets interviewed, who can tell everybody, inspire everybody with what they went through and how they made it through and maybe help somebody else get through it. This is what happens to everybody. So you're either going to become the story or you're going to become the statistic. Let's talk about somebody who became a story. He goes by the name of Kanye West. I think everybody knows who Kanye is, whether you're a fan of his music or his political leanings or non-leanings or not. But on his first album, Kanye had this track titled Last Call. It was the last track on his first album. And some of you know what I'm talking about. And this song, Last Call, yes, is a normal song. I mean, you got a hook, you got some verses, some rapping and music playing. But at the end of the track goes on pretty long. It's like a 10 to 15 minute track, this last track on Kanye's first album, where he basically tells the story of how he came to be who he was. So by the time his album came out, there was a heavy amount of buzz for this guy named West, this guy called Kanye West. And he told the story of how he was living in Chicago and he had always been into music and he would be making beats for some local artists that most of us had never heard of. He would take the little bit of money from those beats and he would go, put some clothes on layaway or buy himself a Techno Marine watch. And this is all on the track. You can go listen to it yourself. And he would talk about it. He laughed about it. But he was really trying to move up and move on to a higher level. He was trying to level up his career in the music industry, but nothing was really happening. Things weren't really working out for him the way he wanted them to work out. And he had a couple artists who were signed to he had a company going in Chicago, but those artists were leaving his company. And he was getting all this bad news about his business, even though he was out there grinding and making his beats, 5 beats a day for 3 summers, like he said in one of his other songs on that same album. And then he got kicked out of his apartment. Apparently he hadn't been paying. He gets kicked out of his apartment. And his mother, supported his dreams and said, you know what, why don't we just get you over to New York? Because that's where you need to be anyway if you're going to get into the industry. So Kanye packs up a U-Haul truck, drives from Chicago to New York, buys a bed from IKEA, puts the bed together himself. And this is all Kanye's story here. Puts the bed together himself. He gets himself in the doorway with some rappers, finally gets his way into the studio with Rockefeller Records. Now, Rockefeller Records, in case you didn't know, was the home of a guy by the name of Jay-Z and a few other star rappers at that time. But Jay-Z was the biggest of the big when it came to rap music at the time. He heard a couple of Kanye's beats, loved the beats. The beats just put Jay-Z in the zone. Jay-Z goes and records a classic album that is called The Blueprint, which actually came out on 9/11/2001, coincidentally. That album made Kanye West a superstar because people heard the production and said, who the hell produced those beats? And there were 2 new producers that Jay-Z was working with, one by the name of Just Blaze, the other one by the name of Kanye West, and that blew both of those guys up. Now, Kanye also happened to be a rapper, so he came to be known as an artist as well as a producer. But the whole story that Kanye is telling, the inflection point of that story was, I'm trying to be this producer and had his company, had his artists in Chicago. Nothing was working out in Chicago. He gets kicked out of his apartment in Chicago. He goes to the bigger and better place, New York, with no real plan of exactly how he's going to make things work. Happens to connect with this person who knows this person who knows this person. Gets him into the room with Jay-Z. Just because he was in there didn't mean he was in there. You know what I'm saying? He was in the room with Jay-Z, but Jay-Z could have just said, these beats are okay and forgot about Kanye and didn't remember him from a can of paint. But he liked what Kanye had. Kanye took advantage of that opportunity because he'd been putting in the work up to that point. He was prepared for that opportunity, even though he didn't know the opportunity was going to present itself. Made the most of that opportunity, produced a bunch of beats on that album, a bunch of beats on the next album, and then eventually put out his own album a few years later. And then he became Kanye, to where he's only a one-name star. We only had to mention Jay-Z when we mentioned Kanye. He stands on his own as his own entity. This was a time where he hit a fork in the road. He chose a road, didn't know if it was going to work out, and the rest became history. But I want you to understand, I'm going to throw a disclaimer in here. Listen, there are a bunch of people who go through similar things to Kanye. They're working, they're grinding, they're hustling in some space where they're not really getting a lot of attention. Things aren't going great there. They finally decide, forget this. Let me just go for broke and go for a bigger goal. Let me go try something bigger. Let's see if this works out. And it doesn't work out. They don't get in. They get into the room with Jay-Z. Jay-Z throws them out of the room because he thinks their beats are garbage. And again, I'm speaking metaphorically here. And they never get on. They become the statistics. Kanye became the story. But the same things happen to everybody. Question is, are you going to be ready for that opportunity to give your best shot? Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't be Jay-Z. Maybe he would have got thrown out of there, went into a studio with Taylor Swift. Maybe it would have worked out there. Maybe he go into a studio with some rock band. Maybe it would have worked out there. Maybe he would say, forget it. I'm going to just put my own album out. And he would have caught fire that way. Who knows? But you got to understand there are times where you're going to hit that inflection point, that fork in the road, and you got to pick a direction. And the rest becomes history. Whether it's good history or bad history, it becomes history. Point number 2. Today's topic is why you need to make moves in life without having a plan in place. And understand that some of these folks that I'm talking about here, they were forced by circumstances into making a move. Kanye West was forced by circumstance to make a move. And there have been times in my life, times in your life, times in everybody's life, success or failure person, that they are forced into making moves by a situation that they didn't even want, something that they weren't even planning for, but they're like, damn, I got to make a move. Kanye got kicked out of his apartment. He had to go somewhere. So he said, forget it. Let me just go to New York and let's see what we can make happen in New York. I might as well. That's where I want to go anyway. No better time than the present. Now I got a real reason to do it because I ain't got a place to live. Moves to New York, things happen for him. But you may be in a less urgent situation. Maybe things aren't so urgent for you that you have to make a move right now. You have to do something bold right now. Maybe you're in a pretty comfortable space where if you just keep doing what you're doing, everything will stay safe and comfortable and quiet, at least for now, until life decides to intervene with you again. But right now, you're good. You don't need to make an urgent move right now. So why would you even do it? I mean, does this point even apply to you? Does this topic even apply to you if you're not in that urgent situation where you just need to do something right now? Why make a move that's not part of your plan, something that sounds pretty risky, that might leave you in a worse position? Why do that? Just because somebody else did it? Just because I told you a story about Kanye West? Is that the reason why you should do it? No. I'm going to tell you why as we move into point number 3. Today's topic, again, is why you need to make moves in life without a plan sometimes. Understand that the moves that will really and truly jumpstart your progress and really become the key point of your story, where you go from being the person who's kind of just going along and maybe sort of kind of hopefully is going to become something, until you become the superstar, the person who really has a story in all capital letters that everybody wants to know about, everybody wants to hear about, and everybody's talking your name. The moves that really take you from point A to point B, those are the moves that stretch you outside of your safe, responsible, practical planning. In other words, your comfort zone. See, if you don't make those moves that are not part of your plan, that are not usually, let me step back a minute. Usually the moves that are part of our plan, that are part of our overall strategy, the things that we have laid out, this is going to happen, then this, they're usually things that are within our range of comfort, things that are within what we believe we're capable of doing, right? You're not going to put something into a plan you don't think you can actually do it, right? That wouldn't make sense. We keep things in our comfort zone when we make our plans, things that we think we can do, things that we think are reasonable, things that would make sense if we had to present this plan to somebody else. And that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to have a plan of things that you can actually do. Because if somebody looked at it and said, well, how are you actually going to make this jump here from point C to point F? And you couldn't answer the question, then they might try to make you look stupid, or might think you're an idiot for having something in your plan that is not feasible based on the person you are right now and the resources at your disposal right now. But the moves that will jumpstart your progress are the ones that stretch outside of your comfort zone, outside of what's safe, outside of what's responsible, outside of what's practical, outside of what's plausible, outside of what makes sense given your current resources. There needs to be something that happens that doesn't even make sense to work, but then it works. Such as Kanye West moving sight unseen to New York, buying a bed from IKEA, and ended up in a room with Jay-Z producing tracks on one of Jay-Z's classic albums, what some people may say is his best album. Kanye didn't have that as part of his plan. I'm going to just randomly show up in New York and end up on Jay-Z's album. I don't think that was part of his plan. I think he had a different plan, but he had to step outside of that plan. He was forced by circumstance to do it. You got to choose by choice to do it. Phil Knight, I just finished reading his book. At the time that I'm recording this, he wrote a book called Shoe Dog. If you don't know who Phil Knight is, he is the founder, co-founder, and still to this day the chairman of a company called Nike. I think you know that company, right? Now, Phil Knight, in his book, he talks about how, if you read the book, you'll learn this, that Phil Knight didn't even want to start Nike as a company of his own. He had his own footwear company, but what he was a distributor. He had went to Japan, found a company that was selling shoes that he liked, because Phil Knight was a runner himself. He had ran in college and he had this legendary running coach. So he was really into running. So he was in Japan, found a company that manufactured running shoes, and the shoes were being sold mostly in Japan. Phil Knight said, look, how about I bring these shoes to the American market? Because I know some American runners, because he was a runner. I know some runners who will probably benefit from these shoes. And this company said, okay, you can become our distributor in certain parts of America for our shoes. So Phil Knight was selling somebody else's shoes when he started his company. The company was called Blue Ribbon Sports, because you get a blue ribbon when you win When you place in a meet in running, you get a blue ribbon, or at least back then you did. So that's why he named the company Blue Ribbon. That company, the Japanese company Phil Knight was being a distributor for, they basically made a decision to cut Phil Knight and Phil's company out of the deal, and they were looking for other companies to distribute their shoes, because that was just some shady business tactic that this company decided to manufacture, or maybe Phil Knight just flipped it around in his book to make it sound like they were being shady. Who knows? But anyway, that company is about to cut Phil Knight out of the deal. So Phil Knight, seeing that this was going to happen, he saw the writing on the wall. He said, how about I go to a factory and get my own shoes put together? He got his own shoes made, running shoes that were competitors to the company he had been working for, the Japanese company. And they asked him, what are you going to call it? And he had all these different names, and his company, people in his company were throwing around names. And it wasn't even Phil Knight who came up with the name Nike. It was one of the first employees that he had. He came up with the name Nike because Nike is the Greek goddess of victory. And Phil Knight said, okay, he actually wanted to call it something else. He wanted to call it Dimension 6. Isn't that crazy? Instead of Nike calling it Dimension 6. Didn't call it that, ended up calling it Nike. And the rest, eventually, it's a long road. Read that book. It's a great book called Shoe Dog. It became history. This is when you face these situations, when you choose to step outside of your plan, step outside of what's comfortable, step outside of what's been quote unquote working up to this point. This is when you need to invest money that you don't have, or money that you didn't want to spend, or move on an opportunity before you feel like you're really ready to do so. This is when you take on a role you feel you're not quite educated enough or seasoned enough for. In my playing career, playing basketball, and in pursuit of a playing career, when I wasn't playing, I made many reckless, irresponsible moves that didn't seem to make sense. And anytime I feel stagnant now in my life, I ask myself, where am I playing it safe? Where am I just being practical? Where am I being reasonable? Where am I just looking at things and saying, well, I can't do this thing. I can't make this move yet. I need to stay in this lane that I'm in right now. Where am I not taking risks with my 5 forms of investment? And the answer is always there. And you need to ask yourself this question. Where are you not taking risks with your 5 forms? If you don't know what the 5 forms of investment are, they are time, money, attention, energy, and focus. That's all detailed in episode number 609 of the Work on Your Game podcast. Find that at dreallday.com/podcast. Time. Where are you not investing your time into something that might not work, but if it does work, it would change everything? That's the question you're going to ask yourself. Where am I not investing and you fill in the blank with time, money, attention, energy, focus. Where am I not investing my blank into something that may not work, but if it does, it will change everything? Where could I put some money that I might lose this money, but if this money comes back to me, it could change everything? Where am I not putting the energy that if this works, oh my God, it'll change the whole trajectory of my life? It will be something completely 10x, 1,000x what my original plans were. And my original plans are pretty good. The answer is always there. The challenge is not if you get the answer. I guarantee you're going to get the answer if you ask the question. The challenge is, are you going to do anything with it? And that's what we're talking about here today. Making moves, as we recap the topic, which is why you need to make moves even that are outside of your plan, or just start making moves even if you don't have a plan. It'd be great to have one, but if you don't have one and it comes a move that you want to make that you didn't even see in your mind happening, you might need to make that move, because in life, this is where the successes come from. There's going to be that time. You may be forced to do it, or you may choose to do it. If you're not forced to do it right now, listen, you're on the clock anyway. At some point, you got to have a sense of urgency about what you want to do, where you're going to get to, because you don't have forever to finally get there. Point number 1, you've heard the success stories of people who have quote unquote made it in life. And not almost, but actually always, there's some inflection point in their story where this person had a situation that they didn't want, they were not expecting, but there's a problem or opportunity or a fork in the road that they face in which our hero didn't know exactly what to do, and every single option they could see carried some risk with it. It was not part of the original plan, but it needed to be dealt with. They ended up choosing a road, making a move, and it didn't always go perfect even from that point, but eventually they get to the point where, as they say, the rest is history, because they took that action, took that chance, and they made something happen with it. Doesn't work for everybody always. You can become a story or a statistic, but it doesn't happen for you at all if you don't make that move. Point number 2. Some of these folks are forced by circumstance into making a move. You might be in a less urgent situation. Maybe circumstance doesn't force you to make a move. Maybe you don't have a sneaker company you're distributing for cut you out of the deal like Phil Knight did. Maybe you don't get kicked out of your apartment and just decide to move to New York on a whim like Kanye West did. Maybe you're doing pretty comfortable right now. Why would you just make a move that's not part of your plan right now? What sense would that even make? Does it even make sense? Yes, it does make sense. And here's why. Point number 3. The moves that will really jumpstart your progress are the moves that stretch you outside of your safe, responsible, practical zone. Phil Knight starting Nike. Like I said, he got cut out of that deal. He said, I got to do something here or else I'm going to be completely out of business, because this is the only company I distribute for. It's not like he was distributing for a bunch of different companies. He was distributing for one company. They decided to cut him out the deal. Okay, what am I going to do here? Am I going to put my own shoes together, or am I just going to be high and dry and out of business and go back to Phil Knight had been a college professor. He had been, I believe it was an accountant that he was. He didn't want to do those things, but he had been doing them. He said, I'm either going to go back to that or I'm going to keep pursuing this. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try it and see what happens. When I was playing ball, I made many reckless, irresponsible moves in pursuit of and to continue a playing career. And some of them worked, some of them didn't. But if I had not taken those actions, then I would never have created a career. So ask yourself, anytime that you feel stagnant right now, ask yourself, where am I playing it safe? Where am I not taking risks with my 5 forms of investment, my time, money, attention, energy, focus? Where am I not taking some kind of risk that if it works, it might not work, but if it does work, this will just blow everything else out of proportion and change the entire trajectory of my life, my career, my business, my success. The challenge is not will you get an answer. The challenge is what you're going to do with the answer that you get. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com. Nobody out there needs more information. What you need these days is a strategy, frameworks, processes, how to actually take all the information that's out there, all the knowledge and content that's out there, make sense of it, and actually produce a result, a tangible result. That's why I created the Game Group. It is my membership site where you will get tangible results for specific areas: business, personal development, basketball skill, and professional basketball. Choose your area of focus, and we have targeted, specified outcomes every single month, along with live trainings, the ability to contact me, have your work critiqued by me, and a whole lot of other stuff. The link and all the information is down in the description at DreAllDay.com/membership. Get in the Game Group if you're ready to get some results and not just a whole bunch of information. Let's do it. Work on your game.